All right, I think it's time to trigger you and receive lots of death threats because we all love to receive lots of death threats when we run into tier list. Am I right? Anyway, someone earlier today did link this VIP Dragons tier list in my Discord server, and I didn't really think about these all too much before I put these in this list. I will pre-warn you. But just as an initial, like, see the dragon, what rank would you put them at? I want to take a look at this tier list here today. I do get people that ask me about tier lists all the time, and just so that you know, everyone's going to disagree on which tier each dragon should be, and no one's ever going to agree fully. So just keep that in mind. And depending on meta and things like that, these could also shift quite a lot as well. Actually, I've zoomed in a little bit too much. So if we go from top to bottom, we do have the S tier dragons, so they should be technically the best dragons in the entire game. And in that, we predominantly, well, they're all VIP heroics. The rest of the dragons, apart from Occult Titan, are all going to be legendaries because this is a VIP dragon tier list for anyone that is interested. But you'll see that we've got Voodoo Vamp, High Corrupted Time, High Master Karma, High Ascended Supreme, and Norn all in there. And now this isn't even really taken into account skill skins, even non-skill skins. I'd probably put them all in here like this. You know, they're all just heroics with bonus skills, so that's why I'd put all of those 5 dragons there up in S tier, just because they have a little bit more going on for them rather than all the other dragons. Now in A tier, I have put High Occult Titan in there purely because he is a very high category heroic with a shield. But I'm debating whether he should be an A or B. I'm going to keep him in A for now, just because he is very strong still, because he is a, you know, very high cat dragon with a shield. But then next to him, we have Corrupted Legend and Corrupted Chaos, who are also high cat dragons, not quite as high as High Occult Titan. But of course, they have the ability to suck and leech as well. So they're very, very nice dragons to have. So that's why they're in A. Next, we've got 3 Karmas. And I know that people will question the Chaos primary element Karma there, but I still think that because they have the opportunity to block and because, you know, you can swap out team members to, you know, avoid Norn, for instance, I still think that they deserve to be in A tier. But these are like the Karmas that have the better primary elements generally. But again, since Chaos is a little bit countered at the moment, they could go down to B, but I think these 3 are probably seen as the better Karmas out there. The other dragons that I've got in A tier are all of the Walking Dead dragons here. And that is purely because of Bunker and Bunker alone. I know that each of these, the Walking Dead dragons, have their secondary skills as well. Like Negan has lifesteal, so he's basically like a mini vampire Bunker user. And then we've got Michonne, who's multi-hit, for instance. But I think that just because of primarily Bunker, because they are Cat 9 dragons, but because of Bunker mainly, I think all of these dragons deserve A tier because they can go very well with any of the other dragons on this list, really. Just purely because of Bunker. Their bonus skill, they all do different things, and we can debate for a while which one's best, but I think they're all deserving of A tier, personally. Now, we have the biggest one, which is B tier, and actually I think a few of the VIPs are missing from this, mainly like Arcana Death. I think this list is a little bit outdated by a couple of months. But in B tier, you'll see that I've put, well, pretty much every single vampire that exists apart from High Voodoo. Reason being that all of these dragons are very good. Don't let B tier mislead you into thinking that they're bad. They're not bad. It's just compared to the Walking Dead dragons and, you know, Corrupted Legend, I don't think I can quite put them on the same tier, but I think that all of these vampires here are very, very solid picks, especially in late game Master 3 meta, so that's why I put them all there. If you're an early game player, this would be very slightly different, especially with Prideful. Prideful would be lower. Blood God will, well, he'd probably be there, but dragons like Wrathful will probably be a little bit lower as well. But I think for like end game Masters 3, it probably looks similar to this. Maybe Blood God could possibly be an A tier, but I'm not a super Blood God over enjoyer, put it that way. Next up, we've got all of the other Karmas, because while the other Karmas, just like the other Karmas, have the chance to block, their primary elements aren't necessarily quite as good in a lot of situations. But again, does depend on the arena, really. Then we have Redemption Dragons and the Ascended Dragons in here. And now, even though we prefer Revive Redemptions usually, and, you know, the certain Ascended Dragons, I think, generally speaking, they'd all fit roughly into B tier. Again, they do different things, and the Revive is great, obviously, and we can debate whether that could be slightly higher, depending on the team comp, but I'd put them all here, at least on an initial look at them all, and not delving too deep into the meta side. And then we've also got Arcanas, but V2 Arcanas. I would put the V2 Arcanas in B tier as well, because they are actually pretty decent, so that's why they've been put into this section as well. And now, one that's going to be a hot topic of debate is going to be Dual Perception and Dual Parliament being here and mainly being in the same tier. That's mainly just because at the moment, Dual Perception has a lot of counters. Now, could he go into A tier? Possibly, but I think compared to the vampires, he just doesn't have as much survivability at the moment. It's tough. He could possibly go in A tier, but I think it's fairer to put him in B tier because, again, alongside the other vampires, they serve different purposes, but I'd say they can be just as good as each other. And since he's countered so much at the moment, I'd keep him roughly about here. Now, in C tier, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on Mr. Greedy, but I think just him, Usurper, compared to the others, don't quite do as good of a job. And then, of course, we've got the other Wolf Redemption, who I just don't particularly like, and I don't like their primary element too much. So that's why they're in C. And again, C doesn't mean they're bad, but they're not particularly great either. Then we move on to D tier, which has all of the Corrupted Titans, the Corrupted Dragons, and these are all of the Corrupteds that aren't Corrupted Legend or Corrupted Chaos, so they don't have their special badge. And just in general, they're just like upgraded Titans, but they are not quite as good as the vampires, I would say, generally. And then we've got V1 Arcana Dragons, which, again, Berserkies, it has its niche uses, but a lot of the time, since you get the bonus damage at low health, you'll end up just being very much kamikaze with these dragons, so they're not particularly fantastic. Now, I did put quite a few dragons into E tier, and these are mainly the Titans and Eternals. Now, Titans, we can argue that ones with slightly preferable primary elements could go up to D tier, but I just think compared to the Corruptors, they don't have quite as much survivability, and plus at the same time, Titans are quite easily countered these days just because all that they have is a shield. At least the Corrupted Dragons have a leech as well. It's just only having a shield. It's still better than having a regular old legend, but it's not amazing, not compared to some of these other VIPs. It doesn't really compare. And then, of course, we've got the Eternals, which, you know, I would say they're probably roughly in the same spot as the regular Titans, which some players that aren't really too familiar with Eternals may be quite shocked, considering, you know, the Eternals have been pretty difficult to get, apart from, you know, Angelic and that. But they're just not super duper viable at the moment because Fatality just doesn't proc. For most of the time, it won't proc unless they're at very, very low HP, of course. So usually you don't get massive use out of it, but they can be really useful in certain niche scenarios. But that's also the case for most of these dragons. In niche scenarios, pretty much every single VIP has their use. It's just generally these guys up here are more consistent. Like from B tier onwards, they're more consistent than the others, hence why it's been made like this. But that is a very quick VIP Dragons tier list. Again, you can disagree. You can call me names if you like. I don't care. But nothing's in F tier because I don't think there's any singular VIP Dragon that is actually like awful, god awful. I think they're definitely all... They all have a use. You can pick any of these dragons if you want to, if they're your favorite, if you like them. You can pick any of these dragons and use them in arenas still. They're still going to be better than most, yeah, almost every single regular legendary. And also, some of these are better than some VIPs, just regular VIPs as well, definitely based on their skills. But that is my tier list and my quick reason why. If you are a newer player that's not really too familiar with all of these dragons and their skills, don't take it as gospel. I'm not saying that this is the outright only correct tier list ever. This is just a very general idea of these dragons and their position in the current meta and how they're viewed in general. But, you know, we could swap around a couple of them. I at least wanted to talk through the reasons why I would say these particular tiers for these dragons. And again, if you have a particular team that works really well with, say, greedy, well, maybe that just works for you. Maybe it's just a really good team comp, works in a really specific arena. And, you know, again, it doesn't mean any of these are bad. It's just, this is the general tier listing thing. Get triggered. Anyway.